Thank you for coming. I've been asked, did I do a presentation 2 or 3 years ago? Yes, I did. There's 1 or 2 slides that will overlap, but there's a lot of things that changed in legislation, and I specifically focused the first part on where are we in terms of legislation and how do we read legislation, because I've realized that often people don't understand what the law actually says. And I'm not talking about just people sitting here, I'm talking about people in municipalities and in government departments who misunderstand or misread legislation sometimes, and it can be a block. And if I can help you unblock that for development to move forward, then I'd be happy to do so. We are a small group of people. At the end I will give specific time for Q&A, but as we go through, if you have a question, please stop me, raise your hand, and I'll be happy to take the question at that point, because you may have a question on this specific topic where I am, and at the end of the slide I've got to go all the way back, so you're welcome to. It's a small group, we can easily do that. All right. Why on-site treatments make sense? This is the current situation, or traditional situation. We abstract water from a water course, we treat it, we use it, we dump it, treat it, dump it. Now in Cape Town, this often go to the sea. And I said it in the previous session, I'm going to say it again, and I know there will be people taking me out for this, but then so be it. What makes no sense to me, in a Cape Town situation, we treat 600, 800 megalitres a day of wastewater, we dump it into the sea, we pay money to treat it. Then we dump it into the sea, and now we're spending billions to recover 50 megalitres a day of seawater in terms of reverse osmosis. It doesn't make sense. Why would you throw away water that you've just treated, you dump it into the sea, and then you want to spend more money to desalinate seawater? And they tell me, no, it's to build water resilience. Nonsense. We're dumping 600 to 800 megalitres a day. We're abstracting from the C50 when the plant is up and running. If you, on the Skeleton Coast, you've got nothing but seawater, then you've got to do RO. There's places for everything. I'm not against RO. I'm just saying we are wasting money in the way we go about water at the moment. The other thing, if you look at this picture, this is true for Bloemfontein. They dump there, and none of the wastewater treatment plants work, by the way. So they dump raw sewage into the river that feeds the dam from where they get their drinking water. Only mankind can be that stupid, eh? But the guys in Gauteng tells me, no, that's not a problem, because we didn't discharge there, we discharged at that point, below the wall there. I said, guys, that's great. Who of you will agree with me that eating healthy is good? And there was a crowd of over 100 people, and everybody put up their hands. I said, okay. Who of you enjoys some nice fresh grapes every now and again? And everybody raised their hands. I said, now you think that you discharge your wastewater into the Vaal River below the dam and you don't have a problem. You see, in Uppington, the farmers have an E. coli problem. And that E. coli problem comes from you guys, down the Vaal and into the Orange River. They pump out that E. coli, they irrigate their vines, and you import the grapes back into Gauteng. Full circle. So that mentality of it's somebody else's problem is sometimes come and bite you. But at the end of the day, we waste a lot of water for the current way things are set up. What we want to look at is the possibility of on-site reuse. You may reuse 100% on-site, or you may use less than 100% on-site. Whatever you use on-site means you need less fresh water, you need less money to upgrade your waterworks, and you have less discharge, so you give your non-functional municipal wastewater treatment plants a chance to do a little bit better. So we speak about a pollution problem that we solve. We speak about a freshwater availability problem that we solve, we speak about a lot of other stuff, as you will see, but in this point we also speak about water security. Because you have the water, you can use it more than once and increase your own water security or water resilience. Does that make sense to everybody? Right. So we say it lowers your carbon footprint. Now, water doesn't have a carbon footprint, does it? But your network of pipes, pumps, treatment plants. What is the carbon footprint of the network, the physical stuff? What is the carbon footprint of the electricity, coal generated? What is the carbon footprint of the chemicals used in the process? So your water that you use has a huge carbon footprint. If you treat on site, you don't convey it over long distances. You bring down that total carbon footprint. Reduce pollution of our water courses. I don't think I need to elaborate on that one. Reduce potable water intake, because you reuse what you have, you don't take fresh water for everything. Increase water resilience. As I said, you have the water on site. Remember, if you look at Gauteng, there was a lot of media attention when they closed the Lesotho Highlands Tunnel and said, now Gauteng is going to have huge water restrictions. Well, they had enough water in the integrated valve system to sustain that period of closure. Now we had the Vaal Dam overflowing and flooding towns downstream, and we still had people in Gauteng without water. Now, how can that be? It's very simple. The municipal infrastructure is falling apart. So you have the water, but you can't get it to the user. It's as simple as cut your veins, your heart is still there, you can still pump, but the blood is not going to reach your brain. That's the problem that we have with the water infrastructure. You see, with electricity, we had electricity generation problem, but we had a functioning network. Well, few municipalities had problems, but in general we have a functioning network. So the minute you can add more power to the grid, everybody gets it. But in the case of water, you have the water in the dam, it's there, but the grid is falling apart. You cannot get it to the other end. And this is where on-site become very important in terms of water resilience. Cost saving, treating on-site cost way less. And I'll give you an example. Caitlin's figures I don't have off the top of my head, but we did this exercise for somebody in Joburg. They have a commercial property. Now remember, your water cost is not only the cost of water, because linked to your water intake is a sewage cost. Now if you add the two together, you get your true cost of having water on site. So in Joburg, we did this one, and we took it off the customer's municipal bill. They pay 127 Rand on a commercial property per kiloliter for water and sewage. We can treat on site for 15. 127 down to 15. In their case, a saving of 1.5 million Rand a year. So it makes sense. And the more water prices escalate, I know Joburg's water prices went up 14% this year. Alright, increased SDG, we'll get to that, and increased ESG. How many of your customers need to get more points on ESG or SDG? You can help them by looking at their water. And it speaks to you, if you want to go Green Star, that is now in the Green Star ratings as well. If you look at the SDG side, there's 17 of them, and we tick 14 of the 17 boxes, not all 14 at the same time. No poverty comes with the installation, the maintenance, and sales of the systems. Zero hunger, you can use treated effluent to plant crop. You can speak to hunger there. And we've got schools and stuff that's doing that. Good health and well-being, a lot of the health problems we have come from polluted water or polluted soil where children play. When you address a sanitation problem, you address the pollution of the soil, you address the pollution of the water, so you address a health issue. I mean, where does cholera come from? Quality education. We often find that in your rural areas and your poorer areas, school attendance is higher where you have proper ablutions compared to a school that doesn't have proper ablutions. So that's why we speak to education, especially amongst the female learners. Gender equality speaks for itself, clean water and sanitation speaks for itself. Decent working and economic growth in two senses. Decent working and economic growth in the sales, the installation again of the systems, the maintenance of the systems, you create jobs wherever the systems go. But this enables development to continue where otherwise it wouldn't be possible. So the direct benefit of this is small compared to the network that you unleash. Because the minute there's new development going up, there's streets, there's water pipes, there's electricity, there's security, there's garden service, there's domestics, there's all sorts of other stuff. It's a whole economy that you unleash when you develop. And if you don't have a wastewater solution, you can't develop. That whole network comes to a standstill. Industry, innovation, and infrastructure. This speaks specifically to innovation and to infrastructure. Your infrastructure is now contained to the site and not the grid system. Sustainable cities and communities. With the reuse, you speak directly to that. As with consumption, responsible consumption and production, you are responsible in not polluting, you're responsible in reusing. Climate action, obviously. Life below water, because we don't pollute our water courses anymore. And life on land, because we can actually use the treated effluent to grow something. And lastly, partnerships for the goals is where professionals, manufacturers, installers, maintenance contractors, the finance houses and the customers who need this work together in partnerships, not necessarily formal partnership as in sharing the same bank account, but partnering on projects to make this happen. So we speak to 14 of the 17 SDGs. ESG, a lot of your SDGs are taken up in this, but your governance part is very interesting where you identify and managing of the environmental and social aspects. So that's where your governance comes in, is to look at and see how everything comes together to the greater benefit of mankind. There is a new regulation out. It's a lot of the press, 6th of June this year. And this is going to change how your future developments will look like. How many architects do we have here? Engineers? None. Okay. I was in trouble in Bloemfontein for speaking too much to the engineers and not enough to the architects. So here you don't have that competition. This will change how you design buildings going forward. I'm giving you one snippet now, we're coming back to this later, but this snippet says, municipalities and water services authorities are prohibited from approving bulk user connections to existing water and wastewater system without having the necessary capacity to service that. It also says municipalities may not approve any new developments that will connect an existing wastewater treatment system unless such a system has the capacity to deal with an additional load. What that means, in the previous session we had somebody here who said on Baden Powell they have a problem with a sewer line that is over 100% capacity. They're upgrading the plant on the other end, so the plant has capacity, but the line, the sewage is pushing out through the manholes because the line is over capacity. In terms of this regulation, no new developments may be approved that discharge to that line because there is no capacity. It's not only about the treatment works, it's about the entire system. Now we'll get to another slide And I'll show you there what I mean, but 80% of South Africa's municipal wastewater treatment plants are in a bad state. This stops all development in 80% of the country. So what do you think of that? What will it do to your business? What will it do to the economy? What will it do to your customers? It's good from a pollution point of view, but from an economic point of view, this is a mess. You agree? There's light at the end of the tunnel, but we need to go through a few more things and I'll explain to you how it all fits together. But note that when you design, because many of you will not only work in the city of Cape Town, you work outside the city, you work in other municipalities as well. So this is something to keep in mind. Where do we stand with the city of Cape Town? And I'm a little bit, I won't say upset, but I'm disappointed that the city's communication to this is very poor. Remember in 2022, August of 22, they brought out the standard operating procedure for package plants for the catchment areas of Zandvliet, Makassar, and Potsdam. And up until that point, they stopped all development for those catchment areas. And then they brought out the SOP and said you can now develop if you install your own package plant. But when there's capacity, you must disconnect it and decommission it and remove it. Now, nobody is going to spend 5 million on a package plant to remove it 3 years down the line. That's a waste of money. So, what has not been in the official communication, but it's been repeated in many meetings and in workshops that I attended, Cape Town has changed that policy that you don't have to be a temporary installation anymore. When there is capacity, you can now, as the owner, decide, do you want to keep using your package plant, or do you want to decommission and reconnect to the municipal system? Just a show of hands for my own reference. How many of you knew about this? That is now can be permanent. That's what upset me. Because now there's one thing you need to be careful of. The system must comply to DWS standards if you want to keep it. Which makes a lot of sense, because if the effluent doesn't comply, you pollute. So everybody who now ran and bought the cheapest, and I know there's a number of them, let's not go there. Everybody who now ran and bought the cheapest junk just to get approval from the city, because it's going to be a temporary thing, they can't keep their systems because the effluent quality is not good enough. If you buy a proper system, you now can get all the benefits. And remember the banks, these banks are slowly catching up on this. There's already green bonds out there. They haven't really made water part of the green bonds, but that's coming, or recycling part of the green bonds, but that's coming. I can tell them working with them. So now you have a greener development. You don't have to decommission anymore. Your DC for sewage will be discounted. Do you know that? If you install your own wastewater treatment plant and you don't connect to the municipal system, they won't charge you the DC for sewage. They will charge you the DC for roads and power and everything else, but not for sewage. How many people knew that? You see how this now become affordable? Because I spoke to a developer beginning of last year, and he asked me, what's the cost if you do group housing, gated community housing? What's the cost of this? I said, well, depending on the site, but you're looking at about 35,000, 40,000 rand for our kind of technology per house, family of 4. He said to me, but Gerard, currently it costs me 40,000 rand a house. To pay the DC, to get the pipe to this network and the physical connection, cost me 40,000 rand a house. So what you're telling me is this is going to be no money out of my pocket. Because what I pay here, I save on that side. Does that change how you will interact with your customers and how you will design? You will also not pay for sewage charges if you're not connected. They can't charge you for sewage because you're not making use of the service. So you save your customer money on the monthly bills. which pays for the running cost of the plant. Again, it doesn't cost them money out of their own pocket. And the 2018 bylaws of Cape Town says that all new developments and renovations must use water conservation and demand management systems or alternative water source for non-drinking purposes. This is your alternative source for non-drinking purposes. And that has been confirmed in workshops with Cape Town. So you now not only solve a development or a wastewater issue, you immediately comply with the Water Amendment Bylaw of 2018, and you have alternative water for your irrigation or toilet flushing, your non-drinking purposes. And then they went and they expanded this because now people started complaining and said, listen, I have a development in the Zandvliet catchment area and I can install this there. But I want to do a green development in the Pinelands catchment area. And now they're telling me I can't. This is double standards. So the city said, now, okay, any development can apply. You don't have to be in the designated areas. It is still on application basis because they obviously need to know where the stuff are. You still have to do your VULA, your GA and all the other stuff that goes with it, but anybody can apply anywhere in the city now to install this. Okay. Are there any questions on this one before I move away from the city? Yes, sir.
I don't know, ask for your example, because in the sense of there's a development, would you need one of these packages per household?
You can have it for the gated community. It doesn't have to be per individual house, but you cannot cross property. In other words, if you have a gated community, at the end there will be a responsible body for that gated community, and that will be the HOA or it will be the body corporate. You cannot cross over to the property next door that has a different HOA or a different body corporate. That's a different legal entity. But ultimately on a single residential, it's your house, it's your property, it's your problem. You can't give it to your neighbor. But if it is in a gated community, a gated development, then this service will become part of the HOA or the body corporate responsibility, as will be the internal reticulation, the internal electricals, the fencing, the security, all of those services that will eventually fall under the body corporate or the HOA. This will form part of that. So as long as it's under the same legal entity watching over it, you can group them together. The cost is much better if you group them, because you're looking at a single residential, and I'm answering questions now from the previous session. A single residential, you're looking at just the plant cost as it stands on the factory floor without installation of 120,000 rand. If you group 20 houses together, the cost comes down to 29,000 rand a house as the unit stands on the floor. So there's a significant saving if you can group them together. It's not always practical possible, but the nice thing of this is as well, and you'll see it when you get to the case studies, is if you have a large development, you don't have to bring all of that into one spot. I'm just looking at the Zolza, for instance, in Stellenbosch as an example, where you've got the landscape going up and down and you have more than 500 houses. Currently, everything comes to a central point of the municipal system, and if you had to have a similar development than that, you can cluster 20 houses here, 40 houses there, 30 houses there, and you can install them as you develop, which saves you your internal reticulation network as well, saves cost on that. And for the developer, he can now phase it as he installs. So he doesn't have to fork out hundreds of millions to build a plant before the first house can occupy. That plant can do 500 houses, but house number 500 will only be sold in 20 years' time. Well, then the plant needs a rebuild anyway. So it saves a lot of those problems as well when you start looking at this. I know it's a long answer to your question, but I just want to give some more context to it. But did I answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. Right. Now I want to get to the National Water Act, and this is the GA of 2013, and just show you our interpretation of the law is very important. Because the GA of 2013 said you may not irrigate with wastewater closer than 500 meters from a borehole that is utilized for drinking water or stock watering. So you're welcome to take photos, but we will also make the slideshow available afterwards. So both are, I don't care, I don't mind, but it will be available.
Thank you.
So we had a number of applications done down here, because if you take the borehole, or if you take the wastewater treatment plant and you pin that and you go 500 meters in either direction, you're on the neighbor's property. So what do you do now? Your neighbor is not going to want your shit. Sorry to be blunt about it. So the development can't continue, and we have a number of applications decline. Because what do you now do with the treatment? Where do you go? And I wrote to DWS. Sometimes it takes a little bit long to actually get the message, but I got the message, and I wrote to DWS and said, listen guys, but this legislation said you're not allowed to irrigate with wastewater. But we don't want to irrigate with wastewater. We want to irrigate with treated effluent that is treated to a standard where DWS say you can actually discharge into a river. So why can't we irrigate it? And the answer came back. The pink was my message to them. And they said, within the range 500 meters requires a license. That's a normal bulla, that's okay. If treated to a general limit, a special limit could be considered under a GA and not a bulla. Look at the standards required for volume 0 to 50 milliliters a day and above. Now the development can continue, because now we understand what we're dealing with. We're dealing with treated effluent that we want to irrigate with, and not wastewater. But this has been misinterpreted by every single municipality in this country, I can tell you. So that's why I say, if you come across a problem, come speak to us. Let us help you where we can. I don't have friends that can do me favors, but I've been in this trade for 15 years now, and I've learned a lot about how the legislation works and how it's been put together. And how there's no ways to get around it. We don't want to get around it. We just want to implement it in the form that it was originally designed. And this legislation speaks to wastewater, there was an interpretation problem. Another one comes forward in this case study. Section 152B of the Constitution and the Municipal Systems Act of 2000, the Act 32 of 2000, say municipalities need to provide services. Municipalities need to provide roads, stormwater, electricity, water, sewage, all the other stuff. But it's not optional. The Constitution says so, and so does Act 32. Municipalities have to deliver those services. Act 32 goes a little bit further, and it says a municipality may deliver such service through a third party. They may outsource it. But if that contractor doesn't perform, the municipality may render the provision of services through third parties. It does not relieve the municipality of its constitutional obligation. So they cannot say we outsourced it, it's not our problem anymore. If they outsource it, they still have the legal responsibility to ensure that the service is rendered. And if the third party doesn't perform in terms of the Act, the municipality need to take over the management of that service so they can continue delivering the service. With that in mind, municipalities took the stance of, we have to provide this service, so we have the sole right for providing services. You will use our service, you will pay us, finish and clear. In this case, the HOA took the court, the municipality to court, and the municipality saying, a municipality, it's an executive and legislative competency of the municipality and not a right of the municipality. In other words, They must deliver services to the community, but they don't have the sole right to deliver services to a community. You can install your private service. That's in essence what the court said. The court went further and said that municipality may only charge for services that they render. In this case, it was refuse removal. If you remove your own refuse, you don't have to pay them. And it actually said the municipality must cease charging fees for refuse removal for this specific community. It's a gated community. They do their own thing. They take their own stuff away. Why must they pay for it? And the court agreed with it. So this is very powerful. See the look on your face. You're thinking already about projects. Now, another one. This is a government department turning down an application for somebody, or not really turning down, but putting provisions out there for somebody to do on-site wastewater treatment. And they say that the municipality must now sign an SLA with a private developer. And if the private developer's system doesn't work, the municipality must take over the running of that service. And they refer back to Section 152 of the Constitution and Section 73 of Act 32, the same one that we just had in the court case. Now there's a few problems with this statement. First of all, a government department cannot instruct a municipality to enter into an SLA. They don't have the authority to do that. You have separation of powers between the national, province and local. So this department cannot instruct a municipality to enter into an SLA. That's the first problem with this. And some people say, well, this is not coming from the department, that's how it is. No, it's not. Secondly, this is a private service on a private land. Neither Section 152 of the Constitution nor Act 32 speaks to private service on private land. They're speaking to municipal services delivered to the community. So none of those are applicable in this case. The municipality may set certain things that need to be in place for you to deliver the service, but they cannot just take over. And then you've got a legal opinion on this. And the legal opinion in essence said, if you read what they say there, and if the municipality were to take over the running of that service, remember, it's a non-moving asset, because it's a fixture on site. If the municipality would just at random take over the running of that service, it comes down to a subject that was debated a lot in the politics over the last few years. Expropriation without compensation. Here's no court case. There's nothing here. The municipality says, sir, you installed that system, it's not running to my standards, so I'm now taking control over that system. Legally, that comes without. So the department is out of line. But a lot of people say, oh, the department said this, that's as a higher authority than the municipality, so okay, now we've got, no. Understand the law. This is a state, our current state of wastewater treatment plants in South Africa. All red ones in terms of the new regulation may not allow any new developments. So broer, waar gaan jy develop? Is daar niks wat groen is of blauw is? Okay? You see the problem. This means it's a dead stop for the economy. Right? Anybody disagree? Okay. Here's the saving grace. Back to the original regulation that was promulgated in June. A water services authority, that's typically a municipality, may not unreasonably decline a property development to have a water efficient sanitation solution that is not connected to the central system. So they cannot allow you to develop and connect to their system if they don't have capacity, but they may not unreasonably decline you to do an on-site system. And to give you an idea how serious DWS is about this, last week Monday I was in Joburg at a roundtable discussion. It was set up by Dr. Sean Phillips. You know who that is? The DG of Water Affairs. And he invited SAPOA, South African Property Owners Association. And he said to SAPOA, I don't want you guys to do new developments and connect with municipal systems because they can't handle it. I want you to do your own stuff on site. That's how serious this is. How often do you see regulation coming out and then you have the DG following through on that with meetings like this? They're serious about cleaning up our rivers.
What province was he referring to for the developments? Was it nationally?
He was referring to all those red dots.
Oh my goodness.
He was referring to all the red dots. That's a national regulation. Any questions on the legal side before I step off this? Nothing. Why do people not want this? Why do people resist on-site treatment? What do we-
It's largely the cost factors. It's all very well saying, okay, it's more viable to go ahead with a project of this sort of nature if you have a development where you've got 6 or 8, 12, whatever houses in a complex making use of the system. But making use of system of this sort of nature for a sold property, unless I'm wrong, but it seems to me the amortization costs and period is probably going to be quite high.
That depends on municipality to municipality. It can be. But you also need to understand if you don't have a network, what do you do? If there's no capacity in the network, what do you do? So I don't see this as the golden leaf that everybody will run this way. I don't see this as taking over central systems. I see it as a combination. This is another solution. It's like PV solar on your roof. You may have PV solar, but Eskom still exists. This is going to be a similar situation in the water sector. But what we found is customers don't have the skill to operate systems. So they need to get somebody from outside. Visual impact, they often look ugly. Where's the architects now? Visual impact. Noise pollution, because the pumps and stuff that run, they're noisy. Odor, you're dealing with wastewater. You're not going to want to live in that stench. High maintenance cost, high operational cost, poor quality effluent. Now what if I would tell you there is a system that can take care of that? Would you then be interested? They can show you. That's the baby one for a single house, and that one does 20 houses, just to give you an idea. 20, 40, 60 houses fit onto a truck. No customer intervention required because the system monitors itself. It will warn you if it's unhappy. No visual impact, and I'll show you that. No noise impact. That system, if it had to run here now, you won't hear it. There's too much environmental noise, even if I shut up. No foul odor. You don't quite believe me if I say no foul odor, right? I get some disbelief currents here.
That is no odor whatsoever.
I'll show you. I'll show you. And you service it once every 6 months, it takes an hour to service. So average cost of a service is about 1,500, 2,000 rand every 6 months. That's manageable. And the service cost for a single house and for a 20-hour system is the same. So if you have multiple suites, and good quality effluent. What you will see when you look at brochures and stuff and marketing material, in some places you will see Claris fusion treatment system. And in some places you will see Muscom water fusion wastewater treatment plant. So it's the same name and we're now in competition. Claris, we used to import from Claris in 2010. Then we started doing some local parts. And in 2023 we bought the fusion from Claris in the States. And it is now South African. So it's the same system. We just bought it. And the reason why we bought it, the parent company is Zoller. Their main business is pumps. This for them was a fringe product. They do about $500 million a year of pumps. They build 4,000 pumps a day. So they decided to get rid of their fringe business. For me, it was my primary business and I bought it from them. So the way they used to supply Mexico, we now supply Mexico from here. That's how simple it is. That's our factory in Van Lynsdorp. So the fusion's been in South Africa since 2010. It's got some track record. Now 100% South African owned. Locally manufactured in Van Lynsdorp, waar die mooi blommetjies is. More than 400 units sold, 10 African countries, Mauritius, UAE, South America, and I can actually now add the Mexico and this. We've got some out in Mexico, we've got the Cayman Islands, and a few others as well. And installation and service contractors around the country. So we don't have to go out every time something needs to be done. They are trained contractors and we are still training contractors. So it operates on the same process as your big municipal plants. I'm not going too much into the technical detail. There's a bioreactor that's underground. The only moving part is an air pump that is above ground. And the panel that supplies the power, and the panel also monitors the system. If something goes wrong, the strobe light will illuminate. One of the panel lights will give you the exact indication of what's wrong, and inside there's a burglar alarm siren that will shout at you. So you will know if it's unhappy from a mechanical point of view. Now, you get a lot of plants coming up on the market, and this is the next slide is very important. Because what happens is your tank manufacturers of septic tanks, their business is diminishing because people are moving to treatment plants. And now you get everybody now who can plumb together a tank and a pump and they think they've got a treatment plant. And not to be funny about it, I've seen a video of it. This one was in Botswana, but the guy's got a 5,000 litre tank, a panel with some lights on. I don't know what all those lights are for because there's not enough equipment for them. And then they have a single circulation pump. And that's their wastewater treatment. Now they wonder why the things stink, and they wonder why the effluent quality is bad. But this is what people do. And we see that most small systems on the market have 2 or 3 stages of treatment. That's not enough to comply to DWE standards. It's not enough to give you good quality effluent. There are 6 steps plus disinfection as step number 7. And I can mention by name which of the systems on the market has got 2 stages and which has got 3 stages. I've only seen one with step number 4, 5 and 6, and it is this one. If you don't have those steps, you cannot remove your nitrates, you cannot reduce your phosphates, you cannot comply. So when you look at systems, this one will be the more expensive one, I can tell you now. But for a reason. If you now take a car and you remove your ABS and you remove your traction control and you remove your sound system and you remove your auto headlights and you remove your climate control and you remove all those lacquer things that make the car work perfect, you take out your electronic engine management system and go back to old carburetor system, you can build a much cheaper car. It's the same with these things. If you have 3 steps and you have 6 steps, there's a big difference in the quality what you will get out on the other end. It's as simple as that. And I always use the example because I had both. I used to have a Nissan 1 ton of 2.5 diesel. The output of the engine was 55 kilowatts. Now I drive the new Navara 2.5 diesel, the engine output is 140 kilowatts from the same engine block. Both are 2.5s. But it is now the turbos and the intercooler and the electronic management that take you from 55 to 140 kilowatts. Same with wastewater treatment. It costs a little bit more, but you get so much more out on the other end. So be careful, especially from a professional point of view, to specify something that will not comply at the end. And if you're not sure, and you get quotes from different people, you're welcome to bring it to us, and we will evaluate it from a technical point of view for you. By then you have all the information, you have the pricing, and we will be happy. We've done it for a few customers already, and we will summarize and say this is the good and bad of everyone, and then you can make a decision from there. And we've had that. We had a case where our plant just kicked butt compared to another one. The other one was slightly cheaper purchase-wise. The running cost was a lot more expensive than ours. And over a 20-year period, you could almost pay our plant twice with the operating cost. But the customer at the end decided he owns a Toyota truck, a new dealership. And the guy who supplied this other plant buys all of his trucks from him, and he decided to support his customer. Good. He's got all the facts on the table now, and he can make a decision. Unfortunately for him, the other plant didn't work. That's another problem. But what I'm saying is we would be happy to help you sift through this, because this can become quite tricky. There's no obligation, no costs. Show of hands. Who of you will be comfortable to install a wastewater treatment plant in the middle of the city, in the high density city area? 2, 3. Who of you will be comfortable to install a wastewater treatment plant in a building?
Is that building a residential building or
Commercial.
Commercial.
In commercial building in the city.
In the basement.
Who of you would be happy to install a wastewater treatment plant in the city, in the footprint of the building, at the Department of Environmental Affairs?
I won't answer.
What if I told you we did it? Cape Town, Department of Environmental Affairs and Local Government, Premier's Office, Supreme Court, and that at one point was Parliament. There's no space, except for this quad in the middle of the building here. So we installed the wastewater treatment plant 2 meters from the boardroom of Environmental Affairs. In that quad. And for the last 6 years we flushed the toilets with a treated effluent. % of the toilet flushes with treated effluent, 50% reduction on the water consumption. The other 50% is showers, drinking water and stuff.
How much?
the quantity of water that's inside the
In this case, it's 4 kiloliters a day. It's about 1 million liters a month, 1 million liters a year. We can do bigger volumes, but that was the need for this building. There are 4 small plants there. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the reason for the 4 plants is because we had to carry them through the building to get them there. There's no other access. You can't get a big plant through. You can't go over it, you can't bring a helicopter in because it's a no-fly zone. So the only other way would be to put up a crane, one of these big cranes, to get it over the roof and put up a crane. I mean, it takes you a day to put up the crane and then lift one tank and break the crane down. That's, with traffic and everything, it doesn't make sense. So we put 4 small plants. How the system works, and now I took out those slides to cut down on time, and then I got the question anyway in the previous session. So what happens is on the ground floor, next to the clinic, they have the discharge point. They have the stacks coming down, joining up next to the clinic, and then discharged to the municipal sewer. On the roof of the building is a header tank that supplies the toilets, and toilets now have their own supply separate from the basins and the showers. So when the roof tank drops to 80%, it demands treated effluent from the plants that's in the courtyard. So the treated effluent flows into a lifting station in the courtyard, and we then pump it up from there to the header tank on the roof. When the level drops in the lifting station in the courtyard, it demands raw sewage from the raw sewage lifting station next to the clinic. So there, we pump the sewage up, through the ceiling, over the reception, back down in the courtyard, treated there, lifting station, up to the head of the header tank on top, and then back down to the toilets. Quite an intricate system that we've got there. And the one having to speak, one part having to speak to the other. But it works for 6.5 years. And we often have meetings there, and you can go and have a look at it. Okay. Who here would be comfortable to install a wastewater treatment plant in the city within the footprint of the building? Oh, now it's nobody. Now I had a few, and now there's nobody.
I want to ask you a question. What do you do with the waste as such? I mean, there's also a lot of fibers from toilet paper and that sort of thing. Those sort of products are biodegradable, or tree-based, if I can use a term. But they also take time to compose. So
Toilet paper we can break down in 24 hours. It becomes a little bit longer for newspaper and for paper towels. Even longer for magazine pages. Believe me, we've had them down there. Mopeds don't degrade that well. We've had them down there. Face towels take long as well, as does underwear. We've had them all down there. It becomes very interesting. I'll stop at that point. It becomes more interesting from that point onwards. So your biological stuff will degrade in the system, no problem. You'll build up a bit of sludge. Normally on your package plant you will remove sludge every 6 to 12 months. This one you're looking at every 4 to 6 years for sludge removal. We were at a site this morning where engineers wanted to see this thing in operation. And it actually worked out quite nicely. It wasn't planned that way. My office phoned the customer and said, would you mind if we bring somebody there to have a look at the system? He said, by all means do it. So we arrived on site, and this is a long plot in Jamestown, Stellenbosch. And him and the neighbor shares a common entrance. They get along well, there's no fence between them. So as we drove down and stopped, the neighbor was coming up from the bottom. And he pulled over, and I said, I haven't seen you for a while, and how are you doing, and so forth. And I said, well, these engineers just wanted to see this guy's system. I said, but while you're here, this man also owns a system, the neighbor. And the neighbor said, yeah, and the guy down there, if you just walk around the corner, that guy's got one, and that guy's got one, and that guy's got one. So all the neighbors, it started off with one guy and all the neighbors bought the system. So they asked this customer, so when did you install it? He said 2017. They said, okay, how often have you dislodged it? He said once. So the next thing, this guy drove off, and then the owner of the original system, he came walking up there, said hello to him. And they said to him, so how do you find the system? I said, well, I'm very happy. It serves the flatlets that I've got there, it serves 2 houses down there. And as you can see, my neighbors bought this. They said, okay, so what maintenance have you done on it? They said, well, I had to replace the diaphragms on the air pump once since it was installed in 2012. The cost of that is about 3,000 rand over 13 years. And they said desludging. We said, I had to desludge it twice in the last 13 years. That was from the word mouth of the customer. And I sent him a message. I said to him, thank you for allowing us to show it, and thank you for talking to the customers about this. He said, yeah, the nice thing is I don't have to sell it, the plant sells itself. Okay. Back to the architects. Will that be a visual impact that will concern you if you do it in an estate? The issue of artificial rock with your air pump, the issue treated effluent. This, they push the parking back because they've got spare space. If you needed the space for parking, you could cast a slab and still use it as parking. Remember, it's a fiberglass tank, so you can't really park on it, but you can cast a slab over it. And those guys, they are bankers, they're from Standard Bank, standing this close to a wastewater treatment plant. I'm going to do fraud, what do you do? This one, in since 2012, this guy, by the way, bought 4 and he sent 8 of his friends to us. They all bought systems. That's what I love about this business. In the hospitality industry, this is another question you've got to ask. These places are empty for 3 months of the year. All package plants, biomass will start dying after 2 weeks of no inflow. These ones, after 3 months of no inflow, the water looks like crystal water. Because it keeps reprocessing the water internal with internal recirculation systems. And the sludge that normally is a waste that needs to be taken away, the sludge in this case is the food source for your bacteria. So what will happen in peak season, it builds up the sludge layer. In off-peak, it lives off its own sludge layer to stay alive. So it takes this sludge back to points where it's needed for digestion to keep the biomass alive. This one, to the best of my knowledge, you can see the photo here, 2012. To the best of my knowledge, that one hasn't been desludged yet. I stand to be corrected. If it was desludged, it will be once. Because of the off-season where it uses its own sludge as a food source. You can go for up to 6 months with no inflow and still have a live biomass.
Can I ask a question? How long does it take to sludge?
How long does it take to desludge? An hour. You bring a honeysuckle, pump it out and take it away. Single residential, that's the guy bedroom, né? Social splay lodge. They're using the treated effluent to plant trees in the desert. Now interesting, this customer bought the first one in 2016. They were very unhappy. They said they never buy another one because of the installation cost. It so happened that the engineer's design was wrong with the installation. And it cost them 4 million rand to dig the hole to get the thing in. Because it's limestone. Now, I spoke to the guy, I said to him, but your engineer is the problem, not the plant. He loves the plant. He said, okay, I'll buy some more on condition. I'll buy some more on condition that you will tell me with the installation. I don't want to work with that engineer anymore. I said, that's fine. So then they bought the second one, and this is number 3 and 4 that they bought. They also own property up at Etosha. They bought one for them. And last in November I was up there, and the maintenance manager said to me, "How much does your plants cost now?" I gave him a price. Only months later he said, "Please send me an invoice." That was plant number 6 that the same guys bought. The nice thing for me, they didn't ask quotes from anybody else, because they know the system works. They do their own maintenance now. The number 6, they're installing themselves, they're not even using a contractor to do that. That's how nice these things can be. And what I'm trying to say, and I'm not saying this is the only technology on the market. You can go out there, you can go to market and check out what's there. I'm just showing you what is possible, what you can expect out of the system. Here is called Bloemfontein. They don't have enough water for the sports fields. They stopped drilling after borehole number 5. And they're using treated effluent now, blended with a little bit of borehole water that you do get to irrigate the sports fields. But now this was designed for 600 learners at school, and they're now just above 800. So the system is too small, so we have a problem. So what do? Take it out, redesign, redo, rebuild? No, we just add another one. And if they go beyond 900, we add another one. And then if they go beyond 1200, we add another one. And so we can add on without having to write off anything that was there before. Wouldn't you like that for your customers, sir? Above ground installations, that's American School in Maputo. That's up Centurion Way. This is in Mpumalanga. There you can see a screen. That screen will remove inorganic matter, so that needs to be cleaned by people on site. For a single house, you can omit that because you can control what's going down the toilet. But for places where you get all these other funny stuff. The one problem they had at the DP building, it was about 9 months into operation. I got a message and they said the system is flooding. I said, well, the installer must go and check, there must be a blockage somewhere. And the installer said he's not working and that's not his system. I said, but you bought it from us, you installed it, just go and check there's a blockage somewhere. And this thing turned ugly after more than a week of debate on emails. And the QS said to me, this system is clearly not designed for this kind of application. This is a domestic thing, you're installing it here in a commercial building. I said, okay, sir. I'll send somebody, I'll pay him to go and look what's going on there. So 2 days later, I sent him an email back with a photo. I said to the QS, I said, sir, you're right. This system is not designed for this application. This system is designed to deal with sewage, with the odd stuff that come down the pipeline that's associated with sewage. This system is not designed to take in and handle a 2-meter piece of rainproofing membrane. Contractor went there, found that in the screen, took it out, and the system is working. I said, but given the installer's attitude, I will take over the next 3 months of the warranty period and I will make sure that we hand over a working system. So you get that kind of abuse. The QS didn't like the fact that I replied to all, but he replied to everybody with these insinuations. Or he copied everybody in, and I just replied to everybody and said, well, here's the problem. Now in this case, we have a 280 hectare development in KZN. The green fields as sugarcane, and there's development coming up all over the place. To pipe that to one central place is a problem firstly, but also Natal's hills and valleys. Every time you go through a valley, it's an EIA because it's sewage. Can you imagine how many EIAs they're going to do there? I mean, you can see what that looks like, eh? Imagine all the EIAs you're going to do. So what we do is we cluster them. We put them in as we go. The first one we installed, they've got a different system here at the retirement village and they're not happy with that one. That's why we're on there now. So the first one is a commercial centre they're putting up here. It's a shopping centre, a church and a filling station. That's just a close-up. And that's what the installation looks like. Will the architects be happy? So for that shopping centre, you're looking at about, excluding the civil works, it was about a R4.5 million job, which I don't think is excessive. Kachima Molilu, we've got a development right there in the middle, there in the middle of town, but they don't have capacity. It's gap housing. So they're doing it in phases. That was the first one, the next two phases. And that's what it looks like. There's the houses at the back. And the other phases will get these systems. What will happen is those phases drain to this area. And those phases will drain to these areas. Because it's flat. You don't want to run all the way from here to there. Your pipe runs become too long. The nice thing is the developer doesn't have to fork out all the money now for the future houses. KTM in Paul, you know where that is, next to the N1, as you drive out. There's a new centre coming up there, 50,000 square meters. The problem is this was not the original plan. The original plan was for a smaller commercial setup. We installed 2 fusions with another 2 to follow. When they now rezoned and redesigned this place, the 2 or the 4 became 19. But now to show you the flexibility of this system, the original 2, if you have that size capacity wastewater treatment plant, you will write that off and you build a bigger one, okay? For this one, we removed the old 2 to reposition them. And they become part of the battery of 19. You can see them at the back there. So that was installed in 2017. 8 years later, we recover them, we just make them part of the bigger system. No additional cost. How beautiful is that for your customer? Campsites? You're sleeping right next to your pool there? Just getting romantic now. Kangaroo caves? They're flushing toilets on the 3rd floor and they irrigate the gardens with a treated effluent. You can see how nicely they bunk it in and hide it away. And if it's difficult to get to places, we make plans to get them there. There's no place we can't go. First of all, you needed a 4x4 to get to that point. You had to leave the trailer there, drive up the mountain and use the winds to get it to where it wants to be. But it's possible. Now you can put some reeds around there, plant a bit and you don't see it. Nature reserves, this is Frolocate. They flush their toilets with a treated effluent and they irrigate around the accommodation around the houses. The Whoop Nature Reserve, if you walk the well trail, you'll find them there. There's also Helderberg Nature Reserve, there's also Alporter Botanical Garden, there's a few others as well. Wind farms, the site offices of the wind farms. This is a construction site, so construction companies now buy this. They use it on their site. This is a construction site for a wind farm, but this one belongs to the construction company, not to the site. So they finish there now, so they pull the plant out and they move it to the next site. So they purchase once and they keep using it. How long do these things last? Well, the tank is fiberglass, inside is polyethylene, PVC and polypropylene. That's not really going to go anywhere. But frankly, I don't know how long they last. Because The first one we installed in 2010 in Franschhoek. You can see the water conditions there, the site conditions. That's the guy's bedroom window here. Last year he decided to move the house because it's too wet there. So they got somebody to take it out. The guy took it out, broke off the pipes, he ripped off the extensions. You can see they all ripped it out. And they broke one of the cages inside. 20,000 rand later, that same one is going back to sale. 15 years, 20,000 rand in fixing the damages caused by the contractor. It's going back to sale. And in Botswana, we installed back in 2012. Last year they rebuilt the camp. And the contractor moved it to a new location and it's up and running. The project manager for the rebuild of the camp just moved the plant to where he wants it and it's back up and running, service the same camp again for the next 15 years. Isn't that beautiful? How often we could take something and run it for 15 years and then just relocate it? Mascom Water is one of only 2 companies in Southern Africa that bears the Solar Impulse Efficient Solutions label. It's 1,000 solutions that we're looking for that's already in commercial stage that makes an impact on electricity and water consumption. So there's a whole checklist and stuff you have to go through. And we're one of 2 in Southern Africa that's got that label. We were also invited to COP27 to present our solutions there. Some other stuff that we got, water meter of the year, environmental heroes. And this is where we do enterprise development. I said we've got people close to you. So we manufacture, we import pumps and stuff, we manufacture, we distribute to regional distributors, to installers. They will install for the end user and they will also be the service contact. But here we build a network throughout the country and throughout the region. And this is where enterprise development comes in. Real enterprise development, I'm not talking about the political one. So we take plumbers, we take installers, irrigation contractors, whoever. We give them an additional product to add to their business and we train them on the installation and the maintenance at no cost. But that means you can have a customer in Cape Town where you can service him, you can have a customer in Bloemfontein where you can service him, you can have a customer in Durban or in Nelspruit or in Sossusvlei or in the Delta and we can service him. It doesn't matter where you go, we will be able to help. So in closing, I want to say that organic wastewater is not a waste. It's liquid gold. So let's change a little bit how we think. And let's think sustainable solutions.